Aloha and welcome. In this module, we're going to be talking about printers, particularly supporting printers. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So this is going to be part of CompTIA A Plus Core 1 220-1101. By the end of this module, you'll be able to discuss printer types and features, install and share printers, and manage printer features, add-on devices, and the printer queue. Perform routine maintenance tasks necessary to support printers and troubleshoot printer problems. So printer types and features. Some printers are also multifunctional and can scan and fax documents or photos. Probably seen these. The Brother is a very popular brand. They have scanners. They have the flatbed scanner on it. They can, some of them scan through a document feeder. They also do printing and faxing, if you remember what faxing is. Probably most of you are too young to know what faxing is. Don't look. Types of printers for desktop computing. We've got laserjet printers, we've got inkjet printers, impact printers, thermal printers, and 3D printers. Some of these are much older than others. So scanners, a printer converts digital data to a hard copy on paper. Some printers are also a multifunction input device that can work as a scanner as well. So scanners come in primarily two different types. You've got the flatbed scanner where you put the image that you want to copy on it or scan on top of it, and then it'll run something, the actual reading element under it to scan it. Then you've got the ADF, the automatic document feeder, which is it's a feeder that goes on the back that you can put in multiple objects to scan, and it'll automatically feed them through the system and scan them, which is a much faster process than flatbed scanning. So a laser printer is a type of electrophotographic printer that requires the interaction of mechanical, electrical, and optical technologies. They're quite complex. They've been around for decades now, and they're very reliable. They work by placing toner on an electrically charged rotating drum called the imaging drum, and the toner is transferred onto the paper as it moves through the system. So the 7 steps of laser printing are as follows. Processing the image, that's where you've got the bitmap of the final page, it's stored in memory. You've got charging or conditioning, that's where the drum surface is charged to -600 volts. Exposing or writing, which is where the laser beam writes the -100 volt image to the drum surface. Then you've got developing, which is where the toner is applied to the surface of the drum. Then you've got transferring, which is the transfer roller puts a positive charge on the paper to pull the toner from the drum and onto the paper. Then you've got the fusing part. That's really it for the paper part. That's where the fuser assembly uses heat and pressure to fuse the toner to the paper. And then that's why if you get your paper right after it comes out of the printer, it's a little bit warm to the touch. That's because of your fuser assembly. And then the last part is cleaning. The drum is cleaned of residual toner and charge. So for color laser printing, this whole process repeats 4 times, 1 for each toner color. And this is an illustration of that process, which is quite detailed. It shows the processing down there in the back, then up to charging and exposing, developing. Then you go to the transferring down at the bottom, shows you the transfer roller there. Then you've got your fusing process, got your paper exiting there, and then you go up to cleaning. So cartridges and other replaceable parts. The parts used in the charging, exposing, developing, and cleaning undergo the most wear. Other printer parts that might need replacing include the following: pickup roller, which pushes forward the sheet of paper from the paper tray up into the system. Then you've got the separation pad, which keeps more than one sheet of paper from moving forward. Those can wear out over time. The duplexing assembly, a printer that is able to print on both sides of the paper is called a duplex printer. And the duplexing assembly is what turns the paper around, draws it back through the printer. So then we've got the inkjet printers. And inkjet printers use a type of ink dispersion printing. It uses a print head that moves across the paper, creating one line of the image with each pass. And ink is applied to the paper using a matrix of small dots. So inkjet printers include 1 or more inked cartridges to hold different colors of ink. And a stepper motor moves the print head and ink cartridges across the paper using a carriage and belt to move the assembly and the stabilizing bar. So when you're purchasing an inkjet printer, look for a printer that uses two or four separate cartridges. Next, we have impact printers. These are one of the older ones. I remember impact printers from way back in the early 80s using them. We had these massive machines when we'd run COBOL. We'd uplink it to the local university, and it would come back with the results, and it would spit it out on this impact printer that would just go brrr, and it was really, really impressive. But impact printer creates a printer's page by using a mechanism that touches or hits the paper. The best known impact printer is a dot matrix printer, and pins are used to print a matrix of dots on the page. The pin shoots against a cloth ribbon, and the ribbon impacts paper and deposits the ink. So 3 reasons that impact printers are still used today are because they have continuous tractor feed, allowing event and data logging. So instead of, like with if you're using a LaserJet printer, you're going to print the whole page. But if you want something that just keeps track of each thing line by line, impact printer is great for that because it feeds it line by line. So also they can use carbon paper to print multiple copies at the same time. So you can get multiple copies instead of having to, run the print job over and over. And they're also extremely durable. That printer that I was talking about is probably still around somewhere. Next, we have thermal printers. Thermal printers use heat to create their image. And 2 types of thermal printers include the direct thermal printer that burns dots onto special coated paper, thermal paper. It's often used in receipt printers that you see out there. Then we've got the thermal transfer printer, which uses a ribbon that contains a wax-based ink. And the heating element melts that ribbon onto the thermal paper. So they're used to print receipts, barcode labels, clothing labels, container labels, and they're pretty reliable and easy to maintain as well. Next is one of the newer technologies, the 3D printers. And 3D printers use a plastic filament to build a 3D model of a digital image. So you've got the filament, which is the thermoplastic strand. It's fed into the 3D printer, and it heats the plastic and deposits a thin layer upon layer onto the print bed to build up a 3-dimensional object. And a print bed on a 3D printer is where the filament is deposited to build the objects. There's also the resin 3D printer, and that uses obviously resin, which is a liquid photopolymer, which is held in a resin tank with a transparent bottom. And the printer projects the UV light up through the bottom to cure the layer upon layer. So in setting up a 3D printer, make sure that the printer is level. If you don't, you're going to have problems with your prints. This is an image of a 3D printer, particularly the resin printer, and you can see that it's printing it upside down. So that's pretty cool. So using Windows to install, share, and manage printers. So to properly unbox a printer, you got to consider the following guidelines. Remove the printer from the box, keeping it upright while removing packing foams and pieces. Place the printer on a flat, hard surface near an outlet. Remove any protective tape or film from the printer, including the control screen. Plug the power cord into the printer and the outlet. Most of this is common sense. The main thing is you want to keep it upright. Press the power button on the printer and allow it to turn on fully. Add paper to the paper tray, and then you want to configure the settings for your intended use. You're gonna have a lot of things to configure in there, like your Wi-Fi and things like that. So then for local or network printers, you can connect a printer to a single computer or a network. So a local printer connects directly to a computer using a port or a wireless connection, and a network printer has an Ethernet port, an RJ45 connector in the back to connect directly, or you can use Wi-Fi to connect to a wireless access point. So the 2 ways to install a printer make it available on the network are as follows. You can do a shared local printer, which is where you're going to set up your local printer on your system and then share that with the network. And then you can you do a network printer, which is where you're going to connect directly to a network using it a NIC, the network adapter card on the printer, and you're going to be identified on the network by your own IP address. So your printer will have its own IP address. So here is a graphic of this. So if you look at this, you can see a network printer out there standing on its own, but then over at computer A, you've got a local printer that's connected, let's say through USB port or something like that, and it's sharing its connection with the others. So it sets up a local share, local print share. And note that the other systems, D, C, and B, can only use that printer when computer A is turned on. So that's one of the restrictions you're going to have. So connecting a wired printer is easy with either of the following. USB, you can plug the USB printer into the cable into the printer, and computer and Windows installs automatically. You can also connect through the Ethernet. You can plug the Ethernet RJ45 cable, like a Cat6 cable or something, into the printer, and network wall jack, switch, or router. Then you can install the printer as a network printer on any computer on the network. So let's see, connecting a wireless printer can be accomplished with any of the following options. You can do it Bluetooth. You can turn on Bluetooth in Windows and move the printer within range of the computer. Remember, you're going to have a max distance that you can go with that. Then you can use a Wi-Fi infrastructure network. So Wi-Fi devices connect directly to the access point, a Wi-Fi access point. Then for drivers, when you're installing a printer, OS-compatible print drivers are required. Use the 32-bit drivers for a 32-bit operating system, 64-bit drivers for a 64-bit operating system. It's pretty much common sense. Windows has many built-in drivers that you can download from the manufacturer. It has many built-in drivers, or you can download some from the manufacturer's website if they're not available. Using the drivers downloaded from the manufacturer ensures that you have the most up-to-date version of the full drivers. And some printer manufacturers give you a choice of drivers based on the PDL included, and the most common PDL are print control language and PostScript. So for sharing a printer on the network, there's several ways to do this. You can use an integrated print server, and that provides its own integral print server embedded in the firmware and the printer's hardware. You can use computer as a print server, so you can manage all the print jobs from one centralized location. Or you've got the other network hardware, such as print server software might be embedded in other network devices, such as a router or a firewall. Sometimes you can find network attached storages that have that function as well. So, so features that can be used to ensure security for your shared printer. One is user authentication. You can click on the security tab on the printer's properties box to manage who has access to the printer and permissions allowed. This is going to vary according to manufacturer, so you're going to have to consult with the manuals on this. There's also secured printing, which is when it's a security feature that allows documents to be printed confidentially, and only when the user knows the printing passcode and is at the printer to oversee the document can he get it. Then we've got audit logs. Windows is capable of maintaining a log of print jobs, and you can access it through the event viewer. Badging, you can use badging to limit who can actually access the printer as well. You can use a shared printer. 3 ways to install a shared printer on a remote computer includes the following. You can use the settings app, you can use the devices and printer window, or you can use File Explorer. And here's an example of using File Explorer to connect to a shared printer. So you can see you're going to go there, you're going to right click and go to connect. So network scan services. So multifunction and scanner devices often offer features for sending a scan file to a location. You've probably seen big Ricoh printers and scanners that can do things like this. They're really nice for small offices. So the following scan destinations are common options for network printer scanners. You can do a scan to email where you're going to scan and it's going to send it automatically to an email. You can do scan to SMB. So you can have it dump onto a file server. You can do scan to cloud where it does essentially the same thing, but that file server is in the cloud. And here's some of the ways of doing it. The printing preferences dialog box for an Epson printer. So you can see a lot of the options that you have on there. So the first knowledge check activity, 10.1. You're not able to print a test page from your Windows computer to your local USB-connected Canon Pixma printer. Which of the following are possible causes of the problem? So let's look at that. We've got a couple hints there. USB connected is a big one. Local is a big one. So the network is down. Well, network down wouldn't affect our USB connected printer, would it? How about the printer cable is not connected properly? That could be it. The printer pool, Windows print spool is stalled. That's possible. You could have paused it and it needs to be restarted. That's a possibility. And then file and print sharing is not enabled. that wouldn't affect your ability to print off of your own system, would it? So that is not going to be the answer. So I'm going to say B and C for this. And yes, B. So the printer cable is not connected properly, or C, the Windows print spool is stalled. And as we mentioned earlier, A and D are not applicable because it's installed locally, and problems with the local printer could be caused by a loose printer cable or a stalled Windows print spool. So online support for printers, the following are important resources that may be found on the printer manufacturer's website. Online documentation, warranty information, a knowledge base of common problems, updated device drivers, replacement parts, and printer maintenance kits. So that's very important stuff to know because parts are going to wear out. That's just going to happen. Your imaging drum is going to go. Your fuser is going to need work at some point. Nothing lasts forever. So it's going to be important to know where to get replacement parts, what the part numbers are, and everything else. So when you're working on printers, keep the following hazards in mind. Dangerous electricity. It can be very hot to the touch, especially those the laserjet printers. You got to be very careful messing around in there. There's also lasers in here. So yeah, be careful of the big freaking lasers. So there's that, and there's also static electricity. So you want to be aware of those. And the following, for cleaning a printer, the following should be a part of your routine printer maintenance. Cleaning the outside of the printer with a damp cloth, that's just nice and general. Also keeps dust and any toner at bay. Do not use ammonia-based cleaners for this. You can also clean the inside of the printer with a dry cloth. Don't blow out toner with compressed air. That's a very bad idea. You'll want to use a toner vacuum for something like that, or you can use an extension magnet brush. Calibrating a printer, an inkjet printer might require calibration to align and or clean the inkjet nozzles. That will use up a little bit of your ink often, so keep that in mind. I had a very nice dye sublimation inkjet printer, and I used up a good bit of that because I didn't run it a lot, and I had to do a lot of cleanings on it, and that used up a good bit of my very expensive ink. So that's something to consider. To calibrate the printer, you might use the menu on the printer's control panel or use software that came bundled with the printer. If an inkjet printer still does not print after calibrating it, try the following. Manually cleaning the cartridge nozzles. We'll have an image on that in just a second. You also want to check the printer's manufacturer's website for directions. And laser printers automatically calibrate themselves periodically. You can also do that manually as well. So here is what it looks like to work on an inkjet cartridge there. Notice that he's not touching the nozzle head directly. He's actually going around there with a damp cotton swab. So that's the way you would go about cleaning one of those. So the printer maintenance kits. Printer maintenance kits include the following: specific printer components, step-by-step instructions for performing the maintenance. You may have to get that off online as well in a PDF or something. Tips for how often maintenance should be done. That's nice to know. Preventative maintenance. Information on any special tools or equipment needed to do the maintenance, like we were talking about earlier, the toner vacuums and things like that. Examples of replacing printer consumables. Follow the steps outlined in the text. Replacing a toner cartridge, that's one. Replacing an image drum, and replacing a fuser. So troubleshooting printers. In this part of the module, you'll learn about general and specific printer troubleshooting tips. Begin by interviewing the user, finding out what works and doesn't work, and making an initial determination of what the problem actually is. This is kind of CompTIA methodology. They like to break this down into steps, whether you're troubleshooting a computer, a printer, whatever. They want you to start by interviewing the user, finding out, the situation, analyzing the issue, and then trying to come up with a hypothesis as to what's wrong. So it says, when you think the problem is solved, ask the user to check things out to make sure he is satisfied with your work. After the problem is solved, document the symptoms and what you did to solve the problem. It's going to be helpful for the next time you come across it, because you're going to be doing a million things. And when you come back and somebody has the same problem, it may not ring a bell with you. If you have everything written down and documented, your own knowledge base of source, you can go back and figure it out really quickly. Or, the next person to take your job as you go up into management, that person may be able to use that to make their jobs a little bit easier. So when the printer does not print, use the flowchart in the following slide to isolate the problem. Isolate the problem to one of the following areas. The application attempting to use the printer, Windows settings or printer drivers, or the printer itself, connectivity between the computer and its local printer or network printer. And this is what that this flowchart looks like. So they want you to isolate it into each of its different areas as to where the printer problems are occurring. So I'll let you deal with this later, but it's, go through this heuristic, flowchart and try to isolate where the printer problem is. So problems printing from Windows. First of all, you can try deleting all print jobs in the printer's queue. I've done this a lot. You go into the print queue, you pause it, then you cancel your jobs, then you try restarting it. If the Windows test page stalls in the queue, ask yourself the following: is the printer on? That's a no-brainer. Is there paper in the printer? That's one we can easily overlook. Does the control panel show an error? Always remember to look on your control panel and see if you've got errors coming up. Sometimes you'll get warnings, and those warnings won't stop the printing, but sometimes you've got actual errors that will bring things to a halt. So do a quick check to make sure you have communication with the printer. So you can ping the printer using, just go into your command prompt and type in ping and then the IP address or the BIOS, net BIOS name of the printer. And you can also check the cable connection if applicable, if it's not using Wi-Fi. You can stop and start the Windows print spooler services, go into the Windows services and do that. You can reboot the computer, then try deleting the printer and then reinstalling it. And you can also check the manufacturer's website for updated printer drivers. And one thing I don't see on here is restarting the printer itself. So that's also an option. Well, hold on. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So getting to the problems with the printer itself, you can verify that the printer is on and has paper. That's important. The on part is absolutely important. Look for an error message or error code in the control panel on the front of the printer. You can print a self-test page and review the test page for clues. You can try resetting the printer and then try the following: check paper issues, check the tray for proper insertion. Are the cartridges installed? Are the cartridges clogged? And check documentation. Our cartridges, some of these, if you think about it, if you've been using it all along and all of a sudden it just stops working, these are probably not going to be your issues. The paper issue might be, you could have a paper jam or something like that causing a problem. But as for the other ones, like proper insertion, if it was working before and it's not working now, it's probably not going to be those items. And then if you still can't get the printer to work, take the printer to a certified repair shop. So, bring it to the manufacturer or somebody that's, trained by the manufacturer to do work on their printers. So problems with connectivity for a network printer or shared printer. If self-test page prints, but you can't ping the printer, connectivity might be the issue. So check that the client can communicate with other network devices. Make sure that it's not some kind of an internal problem with the client. Then check the printer IP address information. Verify the configuration on it. And check the network status indicator, which indicates connectivity and network activity. Then you can also use the printer's browser-based utility to check for status reports and error messages. So follow the following steps to solve the problem with shared printers. Do you have enough hard drive space available on the client or host computer? Since you're relying on somebody else's system to be, printing out the job, they're going to be storing it at their end. So make sure there's enough space there. I don't think this is often an issue because of the size of hard drives available these days, but it is a possibility. You can also check to see if you got the access denied message. If so, you might not have access to the host computer. On the host computer itself, you can open the printer's properties box and click the security tab. You should have everyone checked and make sure that permissions for everyone includes the permission to print. You can also, when using Windows on the client computer, delete the printer and then install the printer again. That's kind of a Hail Mary last thing that you're going to do. Then, we get into issues with the actual quality of prints themselves. So sometimes we've got poor print quality from LaserJet printers. What do you do in that situation? Well, the first thing is unplug the printer and allow it to cool for 30 minutes. These things can get hot. You're going to need some time for it to cool down. Then you can take the toner cartridge out and rock it slowly to try to redistribute the toner, because the toner can, if it's clumped up at one end, you're not going to get an even print there. So you can try that. You can also replace the toner cartridge with a different one and see if it prints with that. You can check to see if it's got econo mode on, so it's using less toner. If that's what it's doing, that might be the problem. You can try turning that off and see if your prints improve. Paper quality may not be high enough. If you're trying to do like some color graphics and things like that, your paper quality just may not be good enough for it. Printer might need cleaning. That's a possibility. Ensure printer does not require routine maintenance. Sometimes you'll need to actually do maintenance at scheduled times. I don't see how that would really cause it to start putting out poor quality, though. That would usually just be a message or something like that. Your laser drum may need replacing. They wear out over time. It takes a while, but they can go. Also, distorted images can be caused by foreign material. You could have things in there if you had it open, if you got dust in it or something like that, you could have some kind of problems with that, in your system. So for poor print quality on inkjet printers, it's a little different. So first of all, you look, do you have the correct paper quality being used? Is your ink supply low? If it is, then you can remove and reinstall the cartridges. You're gonna have to follow the printer's documentation to clean each nozzle. Again, we had a picture before that shows you how to clean the nozzles. Don't touch the head directly. Just keep that in mind. Clean sponge, you can clean sponge near the carriage rest. If printing transparencies, change the fill pattern in your application. If you've got missing lines or dots on the printed page, it can be caused by ink nozzles drying out. That's something, again, you'll want to go there and do the cleaning job on it. And then you could also have streaks or lines down the page caused by dust or dirt in the print head assemblage. You can also have garbled characters on paper. So in that case, you're going to cancel all print jobs in the queue and try printing a different document from the same application. You can try print using a different application. You can check to see if the USB cable is securely connected to both ends and make sure it's not missing any data coming through there. You can power down the printer by pressing a reset button. You can update your printer drivers, and the printer might need servicing at the end of the day. You may have to bring it to a company that's actually trained specifically on those on that manufacturer's printer devices. And here we see where you're going to select the paper source and everything in the properties dialog box. You'll want to make sure that all these properties are appropriately set up before as well. And this is important. I do a lot of photo printing, and you really want to make sure that you've got the right type specified in here, especially like when it's glossy or things like that. That can really mess you up. So you can have wrong print colors. So in the case of wrong print colors, some papers designed to print only on one side. Make sure that you've got it printing on the right side. Sometimes it's hard to tell which it is, so try flipping that paper over and giving it another try. You can adjust the quality of the print. Often it has different levels of resolution. And then for an inkjet printer, you can try cleaning the ink cartridges and calibrating the printer. You can do, for the laser, you can do the calibrating as well. We mentioned earlier that it does periodic calibrations, but you can manually force it as well. So our knowledge check activity. A laser printer is printing images with ghost images. What part of the laser printer are the most likely source of the problem? So if you're thinking about that, that is going to be, well, I'll let it come up with it. I'm going to guess ghost images. I would say probably the imaging drum. Let's see, hold on. Yep. So if an echo or ghost image appears as a double a few inches below the actual darker image on the page, problem is usually with the image drum or toner cartridge. So keep that in mind. Toner cartridge is less expensive than the imaging drum. I'll just put that out there now. So in summary, now that the lesson is ended, you should be able to discuss the printer types and features, install and share printers, manage printer features, add-on devices, and the printer queue. You should be able to perform routine maintenance tasks necessary to support printers and be able to troubleshoot printer problems. So that concludes our lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in email, and I'd be happy to answer. Barring that, I'll see you in the next lesson. Aloha.